My name is Lexi Reed, and the topic of my presentation is psychological factors in performance horses and how psychological health affects a horse's performance. So, in my presentation, I will be covering why psychological health is important, how psychological health was tested in this study, the training environment versus show environment, and signs of a horse that is not psychologically healthy. So first off, we're going to start off with why is psychological health important? So the purpose of the research done by McBride and Mills was to find out how much the psychological health of a horse really affects its performance. And they started off with explaining this exact question, and they found that better psychological health will lead to a happier horse, and a happier horse is more likely to be a better performance horse, and also more likely to develop fear of stereotypies. And these are things like wood chewing, cribbing, weaving, kind of the telltale signs that a horse is not exactly healthy. So first off, we're going to talk about how they tested this psychological health. And they looked at three aspects, which are temperament, mood, and emotional reactions. So temperament is shaped by the genotype of the horse and its early experiences in life and whether they were positive or negative. The mood of a horse is the temporary state that they are in. It's just like people have mood, which is the immediate response to an event. So it would be anything like bucking or spooking, bolting, any sort of just reaction to something that happened. So first, they looked at temperament, and to test this, they looked at sensitivity to aversion, sensitivity to reward and punishment, and sociability, and how the horse responded to being isolated from its herd mates. What they found from this testing of temperament was that it's actually very hard to predict. They tested temperament in young horses and then looked at it again later when they were performance horses and found that it didn't always match up to what they had predicted. And they concluded that this could be because of just the circumstances that they were tested under, and it didn't give them a very good idea of their future temperament, or that the general maturing of the horse changed its temperament from what they thought it would be. Next, they look at emotional reaction and mood. They looked at heart rate variability of the horse, and then they paired this heart rate with the behavior of the horse. So some horses performed better with a higher heart rate, and some horses performed better with a lower heart rate. And they found that the horses that performed better with a higher heart rate were more likely to be successful performance horses because the show environment does give them more stress and excitability. Being able to use that positively would help them be better at performing. So in order to go with that, they looked at the training environment versus performance environment and how that varies and how that affects the horses. So they found that the training environment, since it is their everyday environment, there's little to no stress, and the horses that perform better with a lower heart rate do better in a training environment than the show environment. And the show environment increases the horse's excitability and stress on the horse. They also found that the reaction the horse will have to the show environment can be predicted by psychological testing. Even though temperament was not as predictable as I thought, it still was helpful in kind of determining if the horse would do well or be spooky or just not perform well for some reason. How a horse is kept also plays a big part in their psychological health, so this was taken into account as well. And they looked at adaptations that no longer serve a useful purpose to domesticated horses, and also challenges that domesticated horses face, that they don't have adaptations for. So things that were not found to be not useful to them anymore really are flight response, because they're most likely protected from any sort of predator that's going to hurt them or try to kill them. Ability to form affiliated bonds. They don't really need a herd anymore to find food or provide protection, because people will do that for them. And then ability to exist on poor quality roughage, because again, people take care of them and can buy them higher quality food. And then the challenges that they don't have adaptations for are social isolation. We really don't keep horses in herds as much anymore. They're more likely to be kept in a stall and confinement, so they're not out with their buddies. They're usually by themselves. Limited foraging, which can upset their digestive system and cause them more stress. And limited foraging means they're, again, not out with other horses as much. And then feeding of rich concentrates, which upsets their digestive system and gives them more stress. And stress leads to worse psychological health. So, lastly, they looked at horses that are not psychologically healthy and what this means for them. So, a horse that is not psychologically healthy will more likely develop stereotypies. Not always, but stereotypies, like I said earlier, like cribbing and weaving. These can be caused by inadequate grazing time, transportation to and from shows or to new barn, over-exercise or overtraining, and then insufficient reward for the work that they are doing, like not time off or special attention or anything like that. It was also found that competitive and intensely managed young horses are more likely to develop these behaviors. So, to get rid of these stereotypies, horses need to spend more time socializing with other horses and be outside grazing and be under less stress. So if possible, they need to spend more time just being a horse, even though performance horses are usually kept in confinement to keep them from getting hurt. But having a psychologically unhealthy horse can possibly be just as damaging as having a horse that gets a few scrapes and cuts from being outside with its herd. So, in conclusion, the researchers found that investing in performance horses' psychological health will lead to better performance, and all three, temperament, mood, and emotional reaction, will play a part in psychological health. An unhealthy horse may develop stereotypies, but not necessarily. Getting rid of these stereotypies by the methods I talked about earlier will lead to better psychological health and a better performance. And overall, they found that more research was needed in this field because there's still a lot more to learn to help these horses become better performance animals. Thanks for listening.